Ladies and gentlemen, the year's 2014. We're going back 12 years in time, back to one of the most impressive high-level chess tournaments, if not the most impressive in history. It's the Sinquefield Cup 2014. We have big names there. World number one, Magnus Carlsen. World number two, Fabiano Caruana. World number three, Levon Aronian. I think world number four was playing MVL. World number seven and eight, it was a 2800 stacked tournament. And in this tournament, one player emerged victorious with a extremely, it's just insane, the score that he got at the end. 8.5 out of 10. That winning streak by none other than Fabiano Caruana, going 7-0, was equated to some of the best winning streaks in sports history. And today, guys, today, chess friends, we are covering how Fabiano Caruana went 7-0 against Magnus Carlsen. Imagine this lineup: Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, man, Veselin Topalov, MVL, Levon Aronian, a stacked field. Yeah, that was the six players. Double round robin, stacked, stacked, stacked. And let's see what happened in this game. In round one, Fabiano has the black pieces against Veselin Topalov, who's a former world champion in his own right. So stacked. Fabiano has a rating of 2801 in the start of the tournament. And here his first opponent, Veselin, has a rating of 2772. Let's see what happened in a game. Veselin goes knight f3, so like a ready start. Fabi goes knight f6, c4, c5, knight to c3. Fabi goes knight c6, he just copies Veselin. g3 and d5. So Fabi taking the center. Veselin captures, Fabi captures. Here you can capture back, but bishop g2 is to be preferred. You're just developing and preparing to castle your king. Fabi drops his knight to c7, getting off the line here. Doesn't want any funny surprises. And white just castles. Everyone is fine. Everyone is doing well out of this English opening, as you can see. I'm sure you guys can see valuation there. It is still zeros. Fabi strikes in the center with e5. And Veselin just plays the calm a3. a3 is maybe to stop knight before later on after bishop f5 stuff. Rook b8 by Fabi, and this is also thematic. Fabi gets off the line here. Also maybe to strike with b5 in the future. And he's also just avoiding any tactical surprises if b5 and the rook was on b8, like with knight jumps, and this bishop could target that knight. We get d3 then by Topalov, and Fabi goes bishop e7. Very calm, very relaxed. Bishop to e3 then by white, and Fabi castles. Rook to c1, Veselin is completing development. Bishop to d7 by Fabi, also just getting his queen and his rooks aligned here. Just playing some natural moves, and now we get bishop, knight to d2, and Fabi jumps in with his knight to d4. Now you ask, what's the idea here? Firstly, he's centralizing his knight, very strong knight, and perhaps making space for the bishop to come to c6 to challenge on this diagonal, and maybe for more support to push b5, because if he goes b5, if he just went b5 now, yes, it'd still be okay, he could, but I guess Fabi just wants to place his knight in the center, get b5 in, have more defense on it, and just enjoy the game. Knight to c4 then, knight to c4 is hitting the pawn on e5, but Fabi just defends that calmly with f6. Everything is alright, everyone is doing well. We get f4 then, challenging the e5 pawn, and Fabi captures, bishop captures, and knight to e6. So this knight has danced a bit here, from b8 to c6 to d4 and back down to e6. I just have to sneeze quickly. Blessings. Okay. You can bless me by subbing to the channel, guys. Let's go. Knight to e6, challenging the bishop, and Topalov drops back with his bishop b6 then. Fabi just solidifying c5. We get g4, and you can see here in this position on move 17, already you can maybe feel black is alright, doing better. He's got some nice play here potentially. Let me just close my chats here. There's this potential later on. Always b5 on the cards here. f5 is an option later on to open up for the rook. So you can see black has got some attacking potential. Not yet, it's still very closed up, but there's ideas here. Bishop to e8. So maybe he also wants to swing the bishop over. Who knows? Let's see what Fabio has in mind. And Topalov goes bishop to e1. After bishop to e1, we finally see the attack, the break on the flank here with b5. Hitting that knight has to jump, which it does. It jumps to e3. Maybe Topalov wants to reroute to f5. We get bishop to d6 then. And here he should go knight to f5. Just keep an eye on that bishop. And the knight is quite cutely placed there. f5. But instead of that, we get an inaccuracy of knight to d5. And of course now, Fabi will trade off. And you ask, why is this inaccurate? Well, let's find out. Takes. Fabi was so precise in this game. Bishop takes. And Veselin's probably thinking, yeah, well, your knight's pinned to your king. I'm going to trade it off and I'm happy. But Fabi just goes bishop to f7, and now knight to f5. But it's a bit different now, because after bishop to e5, you can see now that bishop is being attacked. He goes queen to d2, but of course you cannot do this, otherwise you just get forked, and that's GG. So not really being attacked to win the piece, but it's lining up. Queen to d2, Fabi jumps his knight to d4, and now that bishop is being attacked actually, because the knight has made space and this bishop is eyeing that one. The pile of trades, rook takes, and rook to d1. Looks good for white, but actually is a bit cramped. He doesn't have space. His pieces aren't well developed. It's just his knight here on f5. But Fabi's going to get rid of that soon after trading. Takes, pawn takes, and now we get this queen to d4. And this is what I was talking about earlier, the space, the potential that black has. See there? Queen to d4 with check. Bishop to f2. Fabi goes queen to g4. You could take here, trade off, but then there's nothing special in this endgame, eh? I mean, if you turn the engine on here, it's quite drawn. So you wouldn't want that, right? Okay, let me just turn that off again. Why is it on? Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes when I turn the engine on, my computer freezes, which is weird. Okay. Anyway, we don't go into that line. Bishop to f2, Fabi checks on g4, and here the trouble starts. King to h1, and now Fabi finds this crazy move, c4. Now c4 is crazy because if you capture here, for example, look at this, we turn the engine on here, you give another check, the advantage is like -3 almost now for black. It is really insane. Now here, you check, you go there, if you check here, why is my computer freezing? King to g1, bishop takes c4. You're gonna have, the problem is your rook is coming here. It's eyeing b2, your bishop's eyeing b2, and with your black pawn, I'm just analyzing without the board moving now because it's slow. B takes c, you can't go really play b4, b3, tried ampersand, because c takes b, you have a pass b pawn. That's the problem why you should not capture after c4. So instead of that, the Topalov goes queen to c2, but now the position is slowly starting to crumble. You had to find bishop to g1 so you can try and make space for your rooks here, but it's hard to spot such a move. Queen to c2 and rook to e8. After rook to e8, now we get this d takes c, but of course Fabi doesn't go for it. He goes queen to h5, threatening a checkmate, and it's really hard to defend. Now he goes h4. Yes, the bishop does guard, but look at this. Just a simple queen to g4. Gonna break in here. How are you stopping that? You can't really. Yes, you get this queen to d3, but now Fabi captures and the queen is kind of distracted. Can the queen go here? It does go there. But now the simple and sophisticated rook f to e7, that queen is starting to be overloaded. Now after b3, Fabi just goes bishop to b2, and it was in this position on move 34. The Veselin Topalov resigned, and the reason why it's quite apparent. Bishop to b2 moved away. The rook is hitting the queen. Where's the queen going to? Let's see, even with top moves. You go queen to f3, right? If my computer decides to join the party, takes. Alright, check this. I want to show you. It's this pawn that is all makes all the difference at the end of it all. I will show you now. Takes. And you're gonna end up passing the pawn after we see this, if my computer can wake up. C3, C2, and C1. It's nearly impossible to stop. You're gonna lose material if you try to defend. The bishop can't even get to D3 to defend, to E3 to defend on C1. You've got so much power on the E file. You can never really challenge. If you go rook E1, you take, he takes, you take, bishop takes. You're gonna play C3, C2, and C1. You'd have to give up the bishop for the queen, and you'd be up a full piece. That is smooth sailing for black. So game number one, we see how Topalov falls to Fabi. In game number two, then, Fabi is paired against none other than MVL. And Fabi in this game has the white pieces. Look at Fabi's accuracy, 98%. Let's go. E4, C6, MVL goes for the Caruana, which I don't think it was very famous for at the time, eh? Because we all know MVL's probably the best player in the world in Sicilian now, most well prepared. Anyway, we get the Caruana d4, d5, e5, and bishop to f5. This is considered mainline theory, even in today's time. Knight f3, e6, bishop e2, and c5. So, sort of like a French transposition now, in many ways. But it's advance of the Caruana, bishop to e3, queen to b6. This looks very much like a French, just with the exclusion, this bishop being on f5 instead of c8. We get knight to c3, and of course here, chat, we do not capture here. If you take here, well, you think you're doing fine, but you suddenly just in trouble. This is a well-known trap in the French structures. Yes, here you go, here you're threatening to win the rook forking, but if you go here, suddenly you don't really have all that much play after this, right? Yes, you will capture, but what are you really doing? You're locked out. This is much better for white, as you can see there. Rook a1. If my computer will join the party, I will show you the line. Rook a1. Yes, you take here. But you actually, yes, you up 3 pawns. But look at this. You take, trade queens, bishop takes. And this just feels wrong to play from black side. Because number one, you are very behind in development. Your king is kind of shaky. What are your pieces doing? They are quite disjointed. Look, you're down 2 points, but you have a plus 2.3 advantage. One wrong move here and you busted. Let's say, for instance, you play a natural looking move, maybe knight e7. Well, suddenly look at this. You in check. You're losing your b7 pawn. It's not cute at all. Yeah, you get another check there. I mean, you could even hit that knight if you really wanted to, and surely you'd still be fine, right? Yeah. B takes and rook takes and you'll be good. Okay, but anyway, back to the game. That did not happen. That's just a sample line. I'm showing you why I don't take on b2. Knight to c6, we castle, and now he takes on b2. Slightly different. But now Fabi just calmly, in preparation, defends with queen to e1. Now, that obviously guards that knight. And MVL, knowing his theory well, says, okay, challenge me. Let's test your theory, your understanding. Takes on d4, bishop takes, knight takes. A bunch of trades happen in the center. Black is up, white is down a pawn, but he's slightly better in the reasoning. He's castled his king, he's better developed. He's got more fluidity. A lot of drama can happen here very quickly if he's not careful. So bishop to b4, saying, look here, where's your knight going to, bro? How are you going to defend? Fabi defends it because the queen is also aligned here. Fabi says, no problem, I'm going knight d to b5, bishop to a5, and rook to b1. Knock knock, someone's queen is basically trapped now. You're taking on c2, and it's got some sort of resemblance to the sample line I showed you guys earlier on, right? Queen takes on c2, yes, white's down 2 pawns, but Fabi is going to make that queen dance. Rook to c1, queen back to b2, and of course, now you don't do this again, the bishop will just capture that rook and you will be crying. So, queen to b2, we get g4. Now, this is considered slightly inaccurate by Fabi. Fabi should go knight d6 here, the king moves, and perhaps you trade off. But actually, what's the idea? Here, I'm gonna try and do it without the engine. Because if I take here, don't you just take there? Ah, but okay, you are defended well. Takes, but it's still quite interesting. Let's see what the engine says here. You take here. Ah, after e takes f, you go knight a4. Okay, here, and you go knight a4. Interesting. So you trade queens, but then it's all drawn, bro. Like bishop takes e1, knight takes b2, and I guess you drop. You're going back to b4, even a5, right? Yeah. So yeah, that would be too plain. G4, Fabi risks it all. Bishop to G6. And now black's actually better. Fabi goes F4, throwing his pawns at MVL's bishop. MVL goes bishop to E4. The position is equal after rook to F2. Of course, after rook to F2, there's some subtleties here. He's playing to hit this queen on B2, but obviously the bishop needs to maybe move away first before it can actually be a threat to the queen. Here, MVL has to go king f8 to somewhat get off the line here for discoveries, but instead he goes knight to h6, blundering the game, bro. And in this position, Fabi lashes out with bishop to d3. Bishop to d3 is a big problem now because you are hitting not just, well, that bishop, you are hitting the queen too, and you have strategic errors, big problems here. The queen needs to move now. Where you going? Queen to b4. Fabi says, ah, man, I'm not worried. Now I go rook to b1. I chase your queen more, and now for the rest of the game, you'll see how MVL is playing down a tempi here. And tempi, time is so important. Queen to c5, knight takes on e4, d takes e4, and Fabi suddenly is up a piece. So in this position here after rook to b1, let's say you win queen to e7, right? That looks fine for you, but is it really? Can we find the move together, guys? Why it's not considered good? Knight to d6, that simple. Knight to d6 will check, of course. Let's say you go king to f8. Now you take with the bishop takes there. Are you recapturing? You can recapture with that knight surely, right? Or even g5. This should be fine too, right? Knight takes e5. Not even. Damn, bro. No, not there. Why not here, bro? Instead of knight takes on e5, why not takes on b7? Surely that's fine. Oof, but then queen to h4. But that's scary stuff, man. Okay, yeah, sure. g5, the engine says g5. If you go there, knight to f5, now you take. Ah, because it's g5 stops queen to h4, chat. It stops queen to h4. Ah, and now of course, like the knight's not on h6 to guard f7. So if you move, let's say, yeah, bro, you're just having a great time. Takes king to g8, and you are in the driver's seat, bro. The engine is even saying give up your rook, bro, which is insane, bro. Because most people, I guess, would like just give up the knight, right? Why not take a shear? Ah, queen to d1. The idea is after queen d1, you're gonna play queen to d5. Give a check to the black king and mate on f7. So that's very, very problematic. Okay, instead of all that, he goes queen to c5, knight takes, d takes e, bishop, queen takes bishop on a5, and castles. Bishop to e2, of course, now white is just up a full piece. e3, MVL trying to find some counterplay, rook f to f1, rook f to c8. Fabio just drops back queen to e1, and now queen to d5. You can also note here how powerful this knight will be on d6, which it could easily jump to, and it's there for the rest of the game. This knight is on the rim, it's dumb, it's not doing anything, and MVL is already a piece down anyway. Rook to b2, Fabi wants to maybe double stack on the b, f6, queen to g3, f takes e, f takes e, also opening the f line here for this rook. It's bad now. Fabi trades off a pair, and he picks up the pawn on e3. So queen to g3 was also to beat this pawn. MVL with no counterplay, knight to f7, and after knight to c3 on move 30. The great MVL resigns to Fabiano Caruana because there is nothing more to do. You just drop back and Fabi will just slowly but surely improve his position. There's so many moves you could go. You're probably h4 is one of them here. H4, rook d2. It all works in your favor here. But yeah, GG's to Fabiano Caruana. He enjoys his second win. And now we jump over to game 3. Now, this is the highlight match. Fabiano Caruana versus none other than his great rival, Magnus Carlsen. At this time, they were both in the early 20s. I think Fabio was 22, Magnus 23. Yeah. And they were both hitting the highs in their careers. This is 4 years, just under 4, yeah, just around about 4 years before they meet at the World Championship match in London. But here we could see that there was chatter that you know um, this guy could dethrone Carlsen because Carlsen had already been world number one, right? And now no one was really challenging. Well, you could say it seemed like Magnus was just light years ahead of the field. But there was the one guy that the world was like, maybe, those whispers in the background, that maybe there's this one guy that could challenge him. Now, of course, as I said, this is before the World Championship match, um, way before. But the discussions were there behind the scenes. And in this game, let's see what happened. Magnus goes e4, Fabi goes e5, bishop c4, Magnus with the bishops opening, Fabi goes knight f6, d3, c6, and knight to f3. Here, after c6, I enjoy playing this too. You strike with d5, which Fabiano does, bishop to b3, and bishop to b4 with check. After c, it's actually nice to see this game because I had this yesterday in one of my games. I didn't know how to respond. c3 and bishop to d6. The position is quite equal. Bishop to g5 and Fabi captures, d takes e, and h6. After h6, bishop to h4, queen to e7, and knight b to d2. Both sides just playing some normal developing moves, and you'll see the other games ended quite early in terms of moves. This game goes on a little long, well, not even that much, but a little longer than the other two. Knight b to d7, and we get bishop to g3 by Carlsen. Bishop to c7 and castles by Carlsen. Knight to h5. Fabi's challenging that bishop on g3. h3 by Carlsen. Fabi captures, f captures by Magnus, and knight to c5. And later on in the game, we'll see how perhaps this diagonal is really important in how things play out in this game. Not going to tell too much. Let's see what happens in the game. And now already you can see here that black is standing better. One reason is because of this tentative structure, perhaps. And also, Fabi's planning to play up there. Fabi's got ideas of just putting his bishop, castling long even, playing like this. Very simple ideas here for black. Also, it getting rid of that bishop. So yeah, Magnus actually he actually sacrifices. He takes that pawn on f7, and we were like, why is he doing that? Like, it's just an unsound sacrifice, right? Engine says your best move is just to go knight h4, but yeah, he captures on f7, Fabi takes. And the idea here is, of course, once the king hits on f7, Magnus is relying on this f file here, that he can jump his knight over, which he does, e5, and king to g8. But Fabi calculates it all to the T. Yes, Fabi can't castle anymore. He's up a piece for 2 pawns, and it looks a bit scary, but black's actually fine here. So, knight to g6, Magnus says, right, I've got you, I'm forking you. Fabi's, most people be like, oh my word, I'm in so much trouble now. It's bad, right? But Fabi calmly plays queen to g5. And after queen to g5, this is the problem now. Let's put the engine on. If you take here on h8, it looks good. It looks nice. Most people here would just do this and think, okay, yeah, which is also good. You got big threats here. Remember I said how important this diagonal is going to be in this game? This is a one sample line to show you, yes, white is up a rook here, but if you don't take care of this problem here by playing e5, for example, let's say you just play a3, Ha, suddenly both snipers, boom, 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 they come out to play. Hello, how are you doing? Of course, you can't even take there, you in check. You have to go rook to f2, and now simply you checking, and this game is about to fall on its face. For white here, king to h2, queen to h2, king to f1, bishop takes g2. It is very bad. The line goes like this. Takes, if you take here, of course, go here. If you go here, for example, there's rook to f8, of course, and you are just busted the position. What's wrong with my laptop, bro? To f8, of course, and it doesn't end well there. So yeah, that's why you gotta be careful. The sample line that or what I told you about this idea earlier, is bishop being so powerful there, that diagonal. So Magnus goes for knight g6, but after realizing, well, Fabi's got bishop g5, he finds the top move of rook f8, king to h7, and now he takes with the knight. So very, very strategic stuff here, right? You should perhaps take with a rook. Take with a rook, I take on g6. At least you're taking with check, right? And you got to deal with that issue. But now since you take this way, suddenly gives you a little more time. And here what Fabi does is he goes bishop to g4. And bishop to g4 is such a strong move. He's saying, look here, I'm sacking my other rook too. You can have that guy. I don't care, but you'd lose your queen. So you got to deal with that. So Magnus moves his queen to f1. Fabi continuing with knight to d3. And you might ask, yo, what is Fabiano doing? He's just giving away a knight. But there, he picks up the rook. But Magnus is still up on material. He's still up here, right? 2 pawns up. So this is something worth looking at. Look at this. Fabi is now lost his bishop too. But Magnus has got triple pawns. Now this is not the nice side. This is not the nice side to have at all, chat. Fabi captures there. Engine says he could have taken the knight, but that knight can't move anyway. So Fabi's like, you know what? I'm not going to rush it. The action is up here, boys. So I'm playing up here. Fabi takes on g4. Magnus goes knight to f3 and inaccuracy. Fabi takes on g3. Fabi's just collecting. Nom, nom, nom. Magnus up a full piece. Can't do anything. He's going up here soon enough. There's a lot of ideas in the air here. Even like sacking, queen takes, check here, like there, and you pick up the rookie pookie pie. There, queen to f, king to f2. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on here. e5. Wait, what did I say now? Yeah, e5 with check. Now you take that knight on h8. And after the waters, the clouds have cleared, this is the position we have black up -1 in the position, and it makes sense why. Again, this diagonal is problematic. This rook is far from the action. This rook is quite active, can join in the attack anytime, and there's potential to sack here too. e6 then by Carlsen. Carlsen reopening this diagonal for attack here. But of course, Fabi can't take go here right now. It loses queen. Careful for that. Instead, he finds bishop to b6. Now look how the sniper diagonal is enabling, right? King to h1. Fabi goes queen to g4. Fabi, of course, wants to check here on h5. He can't check here. The knight will capture. Oh my, sorry. I went further with my analysis now. The game almost ends here after queen to g4. Queen to d6 by Magnus, attacking Fabi's rook on f8. Fabi says, no, no, not today. I go rook to d8, attacking your queen. Your queen is moved. The queen goes to e5. Now Fabi finds this beautiful resource of rook to d5. Of course, the idea is the queen moves away, and I check you there. Queen with check on b8. Fabi says, no problemo. I go king to h7. And where's the checks now? Suddenly you're out of checks. e7 then by Magnus, saying he's about to promote into a second queen, so Fabi needs to watch out for that. But Fabi again calculates it to the T. After queen to h5, Magnus has to drop his queen back to h2 to have some chances. The game continues because then Fabi just plays here, and he will have sufficient protection on that pawn. Yes, Carlsen could maybe defend with rook to d1, but we just go here, and we are bound to recollect. Yeah, even if you try defending it like this, I guess you could... No, man, sorry. Queen to h4. I guess you could even go here, or just simply go here, I guess. And that knight can't defend it. It's too far away. So, but instead of queen to h2, Magnus goes knight to h2, and this is where the whole position falls on its face. Fabi has a hit on d1 here, not just with his queen, not just with his rook, but with both his queen and his rook. How does that sound? Rook to d1 check, forced to take with the rook. He cannot take or move his knight away. He's in check there. So rook takes, queen takes, and he must now move his knight there. And of course, he goes down a full piece. Queen takes f1 with check, and now king to h2. Engine says bishop g2. Fabi plays queen to g2, and after queen to g2, slight inaccuracy doesn't matter in this position. On move 54, Magnus Carlsen designs. The idea is quite clear. Whether white plays queen to king to h3 or g3, Fabi is just gonna check here. I will show you. Check here on e3. The queen moves wherever, and you just pick up that. Plus there's threats of this. It is just horrible, tough one. I mean, anywhere now you put your queen here, it's the same story. You just do that, right? So that's how that game ends. Going into game number 4, Fabiano Caruana versus his good friend Levon Aronian. I think this time Levon Aronian was still representing, I'm not sure, was he representing Armenia? I think so. No. Okay, but anyway, into the game. Now, this game, guys, before we go into the analysis, I think I've covered it before. No, I haven't on the channel. No. This game, Fabiano Caruana said by himself, is probably the best game he's played in his whole life, in his whole professional career. This specific game, chat, was so good, of such a high caliber, of such a high level, chat, that the world, his colleagues, and the chess fraternity thought that he cheated. That's how good he played this game, chat. So, it's of such a high level, guys. I struggle to explain it. Like, I did like a sample when I was checking out the game, and I was playing through the moves. It's so hard. It's like it's it's just too good for words, bro. It's one of the best games I've seen. Um, yeah, and look at who it's against, right? Levon Aronian, 2781, world number 4 in like highest ratings ever, all time. But let's see what Fabi does here. We get e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5. This is a Spanish a6, bishop a4, knight f6, and castles. The first couple moves are pretty standard here. Bishop e7, d3, b5, bishop b3, and castles. Now here, after castles, in modern theory today, a4 is considered more seen. C3 is also quite oftenly played. Rook e1 is often played. H3 is often played here. Knight bt2 is often played with the idea knight bt2, rook e1, knight f1, and knight g3. This is also some ideas. But Fabi played a rare move, knight to c3, and this was not often seen, even now. Especially then, it was even more rare, right? But this was sort of now, after this game, it was more popularized, but still not very often played this knight c3. D6, let's see what happens. A3, and again, this is also quite rare. Normally it's A4 that we see. But A3, and it's hard to understand what's going on. Knight to A5, Fabi drops his bishop back to A2. Not trading off, now bishop E6, and now Fabi trades bishop for bishop, F takes E, and B4. So this also perhaps makes sense, right? Like if he played a4 earlier on, the whole complexion of the game could have changed. A4, what? B4, and I guess you would somewhat then end up with knight on e2, knight g3, and you get this transposition what I was talking about. Just instead of going d2, f1, g3, you're going c3, e2, g3. So d6, a3, knight a5, bishop b2, bishop e6, the trades happen, and b4, the knight goes back to c6, Levon's knight, and bishop to d2, then by white. After bishop d2, Levon playing in a spirit of like Marshall, like, he goes to d5, and it's slightly better here, well, minus 0.1, this is a bit better for black. Fabi doesn't take there. If Fabi takes, suddenly he has a nice position here, black. The center is his to control. He'll be enjoying slightly better position. So instead of all that, hey, what's up with this comp, bro? Come on. D5, rook e1, queen to d6, and yeah, you could argue why not also after rook e1, why not like Just a simple d4, which is probably not bad. Slightly, well, okay, positionally maybe a slight error, but yeah, you're gonna get this this knight to e2 vibes, knight to g3. White would be slightly better perhaps with c3, but again, yeah, it doesn't go for this, queen to d6, and now Fabi goes knight to a2. Maybe the idea is knight to a2 to reroute to c1 and jump to b3 and jump to b5 to c5. Fabi playing a different level here, boys. Knight to d7, queen to e2, and now we get this d4 move by Levon. But now Fabi goes rook e to b1. And actually, I think I will attach a link to his own analysis of this game that he did on the Iman Christian Chirilla's podcast, C Squared. I think he did cover it on their channel. It is such an insane game, guys. How we analyzed it. Of course, he'll do it a million times better than me. Um, yeah, and rook e to b1. And even here you ask yourself, why not rook a to b1? Why rook e to b1? Honestly, just don't know. It's hard to explain. He just played it like that. Knight to b6 by Levon. Also, Levon's playing quite well too. Like if you look at this, look at his accuracy in this game, 93%, right? It's high level. Knight to c1, now we might see this rerouting happening. And knight to a4. Maybe Levon is saying, okay, I'm going to plant my knight there maybe. I'm dreaming of that. Fabi says knight to b3, rook to f7. And now rook to c1. Now this rook has bounced from here and now back there. Now you wonder why didn't this rook just bounce there? It's hard to explain, chat. Like, I don't know. I wish I could tell you why. Maybe as the game progresses, we can try and figure it out. Knight to g5 after that. Rook to f6. And now queen to h5. Suddenly, Fabius went from moving around here on this side of the board to suddenly creating attacks and problems on threats at least on this side of the board. The threat is clear now to play on h7 and just win the game. Levon plays h6 attacking the knight. The knight drops back to f3 and now rook d to f8. But Fabi says no props, I just bring my rook back to f1. Look at that, guys. So maybe we're seeing some understanding as to why Fabi moved his f rook to the queen side. Maybe it was to try and induce Levon to swing his pieces over to play here, and then he just brings his rook back. I don't know. Because if he kept this rook here and moved this rook to b1 and c1, perhaps Levon wouldn't have even considered putting his rooks on the f file to attack maybe potentially on this lines here on the second and third rank. Maybe that could be one explanation. Rook 8 to f7 by Levon. Now Levon is just making some, I guess, prophylactic move here. And now we get rook a to e1. Insane, Mero. This rook, the rook moved over, the right rook moved to the left and back to the right. And now the left rook is moving to the right. So these two rooks are madly in love. Rook a to e1, bishop to f8. Levon is defending. Fabi is just preparing. Fabi goes h3. And the reason why is to go knight h2, knight g4, I believe. The same concept as what happened with this knight earlier on. Knight to c3, knight to a2, knight to c1, knight to b3. Maybe it's going to be the same. Knight to f3, knight to h2, knight to g4. Let's see. We get g6, queen to h4. Of course, he has to move the queen away. He's being attacked. And after queen to h4, queen to e7. Of course, you got to be kind of watchful of some discovery. It's, of course, not really a big issue compared to, let's say, if the bishop was here. But, of course, you can't put the bishop here to play for this discovery. You just lose your pawn. So that's the reason why. Queen there, but Fabi gets off the line nonetheless. And now we get bishop to g7. And now Fabi again just switches play totally. Like, who does this? The action is here. Most people would be thinking we should concentrate on what's happening here. Fabi says, you know what? We've done enough on the side for now. Let's go back to the left. Like Beyonce. To the left, to the left. Okay, that's just a lame analogy. But anyway, you guys feel me. Knight to a5, we get knight takes a5. And instead of capturing here, bro, this is the reason why. Fabi played knight to a5 to pull this knight away from e5 in the defense, right? So he pulls him here, and also it's kind of hard to defend this knight. Let's say you try to defend queen d6, fine, I take, and now knight to e5, takes on e5. I'm forking you, bro. Yum, yum, yum. See there? So Levon has to take that knight, but Fabi doesn't rush it. Because, of course, if Fabi just takes here, firstly, he can't hit here immediately. It's now Levon's turn, and now queen to d6. Okay, he's still in some trouble because I mean the queen is hitting, it's all hitting. It's probably still much better for white in this position. I wonder what the engine would say instead of queen d6. Maybe there's another move. Let's see. Ah, yes, you just sack. I was thinking of this. Rook takes on the f3. You give up the exchange. G takes. Of course, you can't take with a queen. You just lose your queen. You have to, after rook takes f3, G takes f3. Okay, king h7, the engine says, but that's hard to play. But that would be much better. So instead of this, Levon takes, knight takes. So now Levon has to deal with that issue. Levon says, you know what, it's okay. I'm going to move my knight back. You can take my rook. But Fabiano says, no thank you, I don't want your rook. I want more. I'm hunting your queen. He takes on g6. The queen goes to d8. And now look at this, bros. e5, bro. Bro, like, Fabi's down a piece here, bro. But he's controlling everything. Rook to f5. Okay, cool. What's Fabi doing? f4. You'll notice something now. This rook can't really go anywhere anymore. It's stranded. The knights are on a different planet. It's so far from the action. His pieces are locked up. There's no fluidity or harmony for black at the moment here. Levon just tries to create some counterplay with c5, trying to push his pawns. Fabi says, no, no, I don't worry. I'm switching my attention back to the side of the board. It's really beautiful to see how these top players can shift their focus from this side to that side, back to the side of the board at such a great timing. The timing of this game is insane. Knight to h4, rook to h5, and now we get knight to f3. Fabi just calmly swifting, moving his knight back. Of course, his knight's being attacked twice, so he has to move it away. Knight to f3, and now we get another error there. And it's not even big mistakes, but the position is so overwhelming that one wrong step and the evaluation goes from +2 to +3.3 with just such a move. King to h7, you should play rook f8 there, but who's playing rook f8 there? It's hard to find. King to h7, and now we get queen to g4. That rook is being attacked, and it's hard to defend. Levon goes rook h to f5, but now after knight h4, that rook is bound to fall. And Fabi says, okay, after king h8, it's time to collect now the material. He takes the rook. Levon takes with the rook. He should have captured with the pawn, but I think Levon was worried about stuff like this, right? That pass pawn. But then, yes, you still lost, but now you can at least extend play. Because now after this, rook takes f5. Fabi goes queen to g6. And you're wondering, why is it so strong? The rooks are lifting here, bro. The rooks are lifting. The rooks are lifting. They're all joining the play. After queen to e7, not even that. g4. A pawn storm, bro. The rooks are lifting and assisting. Those rooks are heavy lifters, bro. g4, the rook has to drop back. And look here. The rook can't drop there. It's lost. You could go to f7. But after f7, like, man, this is bad. You take here, here, here. This has to be winning, bro. Look at that. +5 for white. The position is way, way, way overwhelming. And another problem is this dark to bishops also opened up. It's lost. This is like a million times over for black here. So the rook drops to f8. Fabi still plays f5. Queen to e8. Fabi says, okay, now we can trade. Rook takes, and now look at this. f6, that pawn is marching forward. Bishop to f8, only square that bishop can go to. And look at how Fabi finishes it. Rook to f7, rook to e7, rook to f6. Fabi's hitting this guy here, like so. Knight to b6. That knight, those knights are out of the game. Like, you can basically say it's +7 for white in points because these knights aren't doing anything. They're both gone, plus the pawn advantage. Bishop to h6 and takes on h6 by Fabi. And now he goes knight to d7, Levon, hoping to activate his materialist pieces. Fabi says, no, 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 I'll even give you my rook. Because if you take here, of course, yeah, you take back. The engine even says you can take there. But I was going to say, yeah, but it's probably lost if you go rook takes f6 here. It's drawn. Yeah, you would need to take on f8. You take on f8. Oh, yes, yes, of course, because that's hanging. Oh, that's hanging like that, and that rook's being attacked. So if you move your rook away, well, 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 look at that. Look at that evaluation. Damn. This is hectic, bro. Rook takes f6. So yeah, you'd have to end up giving up all your material just to prolong the play. And of course, these guys know when it's over. Takes on h6, knight e7, rook to f1, c takes b4. Fabi says no problem. I will go a takes b. Look at that poise. He's not even rushed to capture. Because also, if you take here now, look how delicate it is, right? Yes, you're still winning, but it's not that clear anymore or as easy because that knights are good blockaders, and that knight's basically blockading there now. So yeah, and also if you take here, maybe there's ideas of playing down here for the counter play with a5 vibes because this knight is there. So yeah, Pabi doesn't go for all that. He just picks up the pawn, makes Levon come to him with it. He should find 98, but it's hard to, of course. Levon captures, just trying to get rid of pieces. Fabi takes with checking to h7, to g7, sorry. And now after this rook to h5 on move 50. Great Levon Aronian resigns the game. There's nothing much to do here anymore, and it's quite clear why. Let's say Levon wants to capture here. Fabiano will simply just play up here. And look at this, look at this, look how crazy this is. Look at this tactic, right? What's going on? Yo, what's going on? Yeah, you go here, you take there, rook takes f7 check, and you're picking up a juicy knight. That's over. This knight can't even move anywhere, bro. That's what I'm saying, bro. You go here, you lose it there. And please don't think I'm not laughing at these at anyone that's lost. It's just mind blowing, bro. This night's gone. You go here, pass pawn vibes, bro. It's over. You can't go anywhere else. Knight here, of course, it's too easy. I mean, if you go here, you're going off the board, bro. So yeah, anywhere you go, it's over. And that knight's constrained by this pawn on b4. So that's how Fabi picks up his fourth win. Game number 5, he goes up against his old rival Hikaru Nakamura. In this game, Hikaru was rated 2736, one of the lowest ones in the tournament, but still, of course, a master player. So in this game, then Hikaru with the white piece starts with d4. Top master, I meant masters in top grandmaster, not master strength, like grandmaster strength. d4, d5, c4, c6. Fabi goes for Karu Khan vibes. Knight d2, bishop f5. Knight to h4 and bishop to e4, f3, bishop to g6, e3 and e6. This is all theory. g3, bishop e7, a3, knight b to d7, takes, and knight takes on g6. And we get h takes g. Yeah, Fabi has this h file to work with for later in the game. But the position is quite equal. Both sides are doing okay. In this game, Fabi did make a couple blunders, but let's see what happens. Bishop to d3, e5, Fabi challenge in the center. Hikaru doesn't take, Hikaru castles. Fabi does the same. Queen to b3, perhaps saying, look, yeah, I'm eyeing you there. Fabi says, no probs, I'm defending my b7 by going queen to c8 and also perhaps having his own ideas. Knight to b1, then after knight to b1. Now the reason why Hikaru probably goes knight to b1 first is maybe to reroute to c3 and also to make space for his dark square bishop. Knight to b1, Fabi says, now I will take, and now he takes on d. Both have isolated d pawns, but we'll see which side can utilize the space quicker, because now it's all about that. Fabi also brings his knight back to the starting square. Knight to b8, knight to c3, knight to c6. Bit of a I'm murdering you vibes. Bishop to e3. That's why Hikaru did reroute his knight. Now we see the reason, just to develop his light square bishop, dark square bishop, and maybe to go bishop f2 later in the game. We get queen to d7. Fabi connecting his rooks then. rook a to d1 and rook f to d8. We get rook f to e1 and knight to e8. The idea is clear here. Knight to e8. This is quite thematic in these Slav defenses. Knight to e8, knight to d6, and playing maybe for this later on, maybe a6, b5 to solidify the jump on c4. Bishop to f2 then, as was discussed. Knight to c7 is then Fabi's idea, not d6. Bishop to f1 and bishop to f6. Fabi hitting this pawn here now, targeting it. The position is very equal, but black is playing with some fluidity. Queen to a2, slightly inaccurate by Hikaru. Fabi plays g5. And again, we see this type of idea that we saw in the last game. Fabi taking play from one side of the board straight to the other side of the board. Because just now he was playing like up here, and now he's back here. Worth it to keep that in mind. b4 and g6. G6 is just a waiting move, I guess, also to make space for his bishop, maybe to lift the king to come like so. Who knows? Who knows? All these ideas in the position. This game did go on for quite some time, guys. This is, I think, the longest game in the analysis. But we'll run through it best we can. We get this queen to d2 by Hikaru, and after queen to d2, we get queen to g7. After queen g7, king g7, we get this b5. Fabi reroutes the knight back to e7, bishop to e3, attacking Fabi's g5 pawn. Fabi defends it easily with this knight to e6. Fabi doing well. We get bishop to h3 by Hikaru, trying to dislodge that defender of e6 and then to hit the pawn on g5. But Fabi says, no, no, not today. I will defend my g5 pawn indirectly by playing knight to f5. So we get the captures. Fabi is more than happy to trade. Fabi has a lot of ideas here, and this will be very important in this game for the next couple moves. Let's see what happens. Also, if you notice, his knights could easily cause problems here. This bishop to this queen could maybe come up here. There's a lot of potential here for black. We get this move now, f4, and this is considered like the first sort of mistake here. The reason why, of course, is Fabi will just pass the pawn and take up more space on Hikaru's king side. And of course, we're gonna get maybe ideas again of the sack here or double stacking on the h. And also, since this now, Hikaru was, of course, hoping for something like this, right? Maybe here, 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 and this would of course be very nice for Hikaru. It'd be slightly to be preferred. It's much simpler for him to play, and he definitely wouldn't, most likely, not lose that position, this position from that point. So it would most likely end up in a draw. But of course, Fabi declining that pawn pushes it, and now what I'm trying to say is his pieces are kind of locked out. It can't do much. That the Arctic bishop is locked behind the pawn. There's no attack on black's king. Black is doing well after g5, and now you can see even there in the eval bar, black enjoys a -1 advantage. Queen to d3, then we get queen to d3, rook a to c8, and rook d to c1. I'll be taking the open, semi-open file with rook to c4, and we're probably going to get after knight to e2. I was going to say maybe this guy will jump here, but Fabi seeing better with knight to c7 attacks that b5 pawn, and we get knight to c3. Here the engine says you should just give up the pawn like this, and maybe later on you go maybe like rook b1 play for that. But instead of that, Hikaru now goes knight to c3, and here now black is doing better. Can Fabi spot it though? -2.5 advantage for black. Fabi goes rook to c8 now. Finally, he does that idea. And also the thing is here, there's no rush for Fabi. He's saying, look here, I could easily do this. Takes. But again, he takes here, and that could easily be closer to equality for Hikaru. I would turn the engine on, but it's really not. It freezes when I do, man, chat. So that's why. But I'm trying to see if I show you this. Yeah, why it would be closer, perhaps. It's still better for Fabiano, of course, but maybe it's closer practically to equality because of that f5 pawn hanging. Yes, and also there on g4. And I believe I don't have the timestamps for this game. Um, But I think Fabi was under some time pressure, if I'm not mistaken, in this game. I will go back and check. Knight to c3, rook to c8, and now we get h3. Hikaru challenging Fabi's dangerous hold here on g4. Fabi now captures, and now king to h2. Yes, maybe Hikaru achieved some small victory by not allowing maybe some lifts here. But now the position is also dwindling a bit in the sense of this pressure down here. Now let's see what happens here. Knight takes b5 finally happens. Fabi's up -3. Hikaru trades, Fabi hits. There's a lot of problems up here now on the c5, on this side of the board. Here. Okay, after that we get king takes on h3. Hikaru collecting there. And now we get queen to d7. Queen to d7, very, very calm move, dropping back the king, king to g2. And we'll see why Fabi does this. He drops the queen back to play b5, pushing the pawn, rook to b1 and a6, simply just defending. And now rook to c1. After rook to c1, we get queen to e6. Fabi then bringing the queen over. Fabi's like, maybe we can even trade queens here. After bishop to f2, Fabi says, look here, I'm blundering. I'm giving you my queen. He didn't have to. He could have traded. Because the idea here is, of course, here, if you go here, I wonder what the engine says. Maybe I hit it there, right? Why not F? It's funny if you take with the F pawn, it's not as strong. Very interesting. Very interesting. If you take here, if you go up to D1, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. It's funny how if you, with what pawn you take in this position can influence a lot here. Let's sit with it a bit here. I go here. Could it be because of queen here and queen there? Here. What's the idea? Yes. So it's still better for black, but not by much, right? For stuff like this. Okay, but it's hard to find. Black would still probably win there. But instead of all this, Fabi gives up his queen differently. Fabi takes there on c1. Hikaru takes there, and now Fabi goes f takes e. Fabi feeling very confident, saying, I can beat you. Queen down, bro. Hikaru blunders immediately, though, with g4. And Fabi blunders back with f takes g. The winning move here, of course, was to go bishop to h4. And of course, the reason why is if you took there, I would have this check. You can't go up, you must go down. And the simple rook to c3. Of course, if you did not capture, let's say after this, here, it's hard to find a move here actually. You'd have to like go queen h3, but then of course after queen, why is my computer doing this? After queen to h3, um, I could I even take here? I think I would, but that's just me. Let's see. Yeah, it's still winning, man. Because after bishop takes bishop, if king takes is the same concept that I showed you guys just now. You'd end up picking up the queen and you'd be up a rook. So yeah, Fabi missed this bishop h4 idea. Instead, he went f takes g, blunders back, and now Hikaru finds queen e2, sort of saving his position. Fabi has to grind it now with king to f7. The game stretches on. Queen to d3, rook to c2, queen check, king to e8, and now Hikaru blunders back with f5. But now Fabi does find the move with bishop takes d4, and this time Fabi takes no prisoners. He checks on f2, king to g3, rook to c3, king to g4, rook to g2 check, king to f4, Fabi giving checks galore. Hikaru hoping for a repetition. Fabi did that to get some time. Queen check on e7. Hikaru will check Fabi a bit. The king runs around rook to c7, but in itself here, Fabi is creating nets. Fabi's going to play rook to e5, I believe. But Hikaru takes there in that situation there to c7. I mean to d8. Black plays king to b7, getting rid of the pin on the rook on c7. Fabi picks up a juicy pawn on a3. Hikaru goes queen to d5, check. Fabiano goes queen, king to b6. The checks are running out. Hikaru tries once again with queen to d8. But now Fabiano just plays this beautiful move of bishop to c5. Queen check on b8, rook to b7, queen to d8 check, king to a7, queen to d5, bishop to b6. We get this king to g5, and now after this, rook to c7, king to g6. Hikaru is trying to push this pawn to promotion, but he's just not in time. After b4, Fabi says, I'm running my own pawn. Because if he pushes f7, the rooks are there, bro. The rooks are there, bro. Guarding. And now we get this queen to e6. Hikaru tried his best, but after this move of bishop d4, it's in this position on move 67 then that Hikaru Nakamura resigns, and the reason is simple. Let's say you go here, Fabiano just going to do this. Of course, it is over. There's nothing much to do. You're running there, but Fabiano probably just mate with his rook and bishop. Yeah, you run up. Yeah, the suffering continues. The checks there. There's not much you can do. Hikaru is well defended. I mean, Fabiano is well defended. Can't go there. He's in check. Can't give a check anywhere. That pawn's going to run. This bishop can always just go here to c3, run the other pawn. It will end in tears. Okay, on move 67, then that game ends going into round 6. Fabiano meets Veselin Topalov for the second time, and this time Caruana has the white pieces against Topalov. This game also ends quite soon, e4, c5 in Sicilian territories. Knight takes, knight c6, knight c3, a6. This is known as the Taimanov a6 lines, knight takes, b takes, and bishop to d3. White is just calmly developing d5. That is generally the Sicilian dream, to get this d5 push. Castles by white. Fabiano says no problems in castling. Knight f6, rook e1, bishop e7, and e5, knight to d7, and bishop to g4. Fabiano playing this like a machine, attacking that pawn on g7. Of course, here you could castle, I guess, but it is a bit risky. You end up losing because you are being attacked into mate. You have to defend it like that. But of course, if you do that, bro, look at that evaluation. Plus 4,8. That's sad times if you are playing black in that position. So after that, you got to go for king f8, which is theory, of course. Very French-like. Fabi goes knight. And this is again, Fabi just switching play. Like it's easy vibes. Engine says queen h5. Fabi says, nah, I'm a switch. Sorry. Go back. I'm a switch play. Knight a4. Queen to a5. Fabi goes rook to e2, of course, getting off the mate line. Most folks will also just like maybe play bishop e3 and calmly continue the game. But Fabi says, nope, I'm going rook to e2, maybe then to get bishop d2, right? Don't worry about this knight, it's not hanging. The queen is guarding there. Maybe now Veselin should maybe go for h5, which he does. h5, Fabi says, no probs, I'm going queen to f2, f4, sorry. Keeping his eye on that knight. Of course, if he just drops down, he loses that knight and the game. So we get g5, Veselin lashing out at Fabi here. Fabi goes for this beautiful bishop to d2 in theory, because if you take there, I take there, and it's quite drawn. Both sides are happy. But now Veselin, panicking, drops his queen to c7. And here the fun times start. Fabi goes queen to g3. And now Fabi has sort of achieved what he wanted to. He made these pawns look tentative. And maybe, yeah, Veselin will attack them like he does here with h4. Fabi drops up to h to g4. And these pawns will be tickled very soon. Because suddenly, how are you defending there? Right? The engine says you must forget about that pawn and play c5. Well, Veselin is human, and he goes rook to g8. And here we see how Fabi carefully handles this with rook a to e1. f4 is to be preferred here, but that does come, I believe, right? After rook a to e1, Fabi just develops, and now c5. But now Fabi goes c4 challenging, and now d takes c. and Fabi goes for bishop takes on c4. Better move here was bishop to h7, just attacking that rook, because if bishop h7, rook to g7, what does engine say you do? You go queen to h5 here, and you just enjoy a better position. But instead of all that, we don't see that. We go here, bishop takes c4, the more natural approach, bishop to b7 and h3 then by white. After h3, we get rook to d8, and now bishop to c3. Wondering now, what's the plan here? Is bishop c3 to go back with the rooks here, to dance with them like that? Let's find out. We get knight to b8, maybe to reroute down here to c6. Now we get rook to e3, lifting the rook. What's the idea here? We don't understand yet. Knight to 6. Fabi sacrificing. So here's the chat, guys. If you take there as what happened in the game, F file is exposed. There's danger. Fabi calculates it like a machine. Rook to f3, king to e8. Fabi picks up that juicy pawn on e6, and that king doesn't have a lot of squares to go to, chat. So after king to e8 here, if you go here, for instance, you are lost, because now it looks good. It looks good. But now the king would run away, bros. Like king to d7, king to c8, and you're fine. There's no way. You can maybe chuck a check here, but that king is running, bro. So that's why you don't get carried away, and that's why you go queen to e6 to prevent this king running away. Queen takes then there, and Veselin goes knight to rook to g7. He should go knight to d4, just forgetting about that rook, which is very hard to, right? I mean, who plays this? You check here, you check there, and what do you play next here? Yeah, here I mean, you go here, he's gonna take you here, you're still gonna be alright, but I mean, oof, like queen to f7, you take with check, check. Whoa, no, you don't take with a queen, bro, you take with a pawn. There's a bishop here. If you took, yeah, let's see what happens, just to show you how bad it would be if you took with a queen. You take with the pawn, not the queen, chat. You'd be lost there. Right? You take with a pawn and you just continue your game. Your queen on f7 is much more powerful anyway, because you're also eyeing that f7, very dangerous. But instead of all that, Veselin doesn't go knight to d4. He goes rook to g7, just guarding his rook. But that does more harm than good, because after that, Fabiano goes rook, queen to h6. And now he goes for this idea. I guess he goes for knight d4 so that Fabi doesn't take the rook with check, right? But Fabi discards all of that. Instead, he just goes e6, bro. Fabi's sacrificing his rookie pookie pie. Veselin takes the check. Fabi goes g takes f3. Bishop to f8. Queen to h5 with check. Where's this king going to? It can only go to e7. And after king to e7, Fabi says, bishop takes g7, and the rookie pookie pie is gone, because after this, of course, oh yeah, and after this bishop g7 on move 31, uh Veselin Topalov resigned the game, because after this, if bishop takes, for instance, there is this queen to f7 with check, king here, and I guess what would the engine do? Maybe a rook to, maybe you give a rook check. Oh, well, you just run up your pawn, I guess, right? Pass pawn's gotta run. You don't do this, guys. Please, don't do this. Don't do this. You'll be actually worse. Please don't do that. Pass pawns must run, and that's exactly what would have happened after this bishop here. I guess you just take with check, bro. Here, and rook to d1, and you should be winning here. Yeah. Okay, so that's how that sixth game ended, and now we jump into the final game, game number 7. Fabi's on 6 out of 6, guys. This is already like insanely impressive, bro. Let's see what happens in the last game against MVL. Fabi with the black pieces. MVL starts with d4, Fabi goes d5, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e7, and bishop to f4. MVL saying, I'm going for some London or some Queen's Gambit declined. It's going to transpose into a Charusek variation. We get e3 castles, rook to c1, knight b to d7, and c5. Also playing some perfectly natural moves. This game lasts a little longer than their first game. So Fabi jumps with his knight then to e4, taking some space. MVL says, no, I'm not going to capture, I'm going bishop d3, and Fabi with some stonewall structure goes f5, solidifying that center. Knight to f3 considered slightly inaccurate because why? Fabi could have played g5 to attack that bishop, but he decides not to. He goes c6, completing his stone wall formation. Knight to e5 then by MVL, and Fabi captures. MVL returns the capture, bishop takes, and now bishop to f6. MVL just trades off. Maybe hoping for a draw. Queen takes, but black has definitely got ideas here with f4 even. Knight to e2. After knight to e2, we get this e5. Fabi breaking the center, breaking his stone wall, trying to challenge MVL. Here, MVL has to capture this pawn. Instead, he goes queen to a4, which is considered a bit strange, because maybe even castling would have been a bit better here. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, castling would be fine. So, queen a4 was a bit strange to see. If I'm being honest here in this position, I didn't expect that. I don't understand why it's being played. Is it to guard against this capture? I don't know. But instead of that, Fabi immediately stops with this idea and switches to a different thought process, saying, look here, I want to take on f2, bro. MVL says, no, that's not happening. I'm guarding with g3. Fabi says, okay, but now I'm playing in your territory. After queen to g4. After queen to g4, we get rook to f1. After rook to f1, the position is already looking shady. White can't castle anymore. That's something to notice here. Rook to f1, Fabi is planning to reroute the knight simply to g5 and maybe to f3. Let's see what happens. Knight to g5, king to d2, and there we get it. It is considered inaccurate. The engine says here you should play for f4. Takes. Maybe you give up a pawn for space. But Fabi plays the more natural looking move, which is also good. Knight to f3. Check. King to c3. And now Fabi just collects a juicy pawn. Says, if not, why not? I will take it. Knight takes on h2, then attacking the rook. The rook goes to h1. Fabi dances back to f3 with his knight. Queen to a5. That queen is just dancing there as well. Far from home. Queen to g5. Fabi probably just wants to reroute and say, look here, I'm fine to go into an endgame with you now. I'm up a pawn, I've got decent position, and I can beat you in this endgame. Also, got to think of momentum and psychology. Fabi's got like on a 6-0 winning streak. Like everyone is scared right now. Like anything it does, they're like, yo, what's happening? We get d takes e, and Fabi does reroute the pawn to the queen to e7. I was thinking to d8 he would, but okay, yeah, here he's also maybe saying, look, yeah, I'm gonna eat you like that. So knight to d4, and now Fabi, of course, captures with the knight. Taking with the queen is also fine, I guess, but not. No, I mean, yeah, you could, right? I wonder why this would not be fine. This should be fine too. Let's see what the engine says. Yeah, it's also fine. Engine says play a4. Because I guess you could always just take like so, and you'll be okay. But instead, Fabi just captures with that knight. And now we get b3, considered a mistake. The engine says, yeah, you have to go queen, king to d2. And perhaps king to d2 is also just to make space for your rooks, I guess, to maybe challenge with b4, b5 eventually. But we get b3. Maybe MV, I was thinking, we can run up like this, right? But we'll see why this is considered a mistake. We get b6. b6 is attacking that queen. Now, here's the thing, chat. If you take here, I take there. You can't necessarily, you could take, actually, yeah, you could take there, you'd be better. So why did Fabi play b6? What happened here? What happened here? This last game I didn't study at all. Yo, why is my computer doing this, bro? b3, b6. If you take there, which does happen. Ah, I see the idea. You take there, which is considered a big mistake. Let me just switch this engine off because it's affecting our analysis. So you take there, you're going c5, you're kicking that knight. The knight jumps to b5, but now simply bishop b7. And you're thinking, oh well, I'm going to pick up another pawn. There's actually big problems here with your king. And the reason why is because if you take there, I have this check and I'm hitting your rook on h1. I think this is what Fabi does. Yeah, he goes d4 with discovery. He goes he takes d, and now Fabi doesn't pick this up first, not being greedy for it. He trades off first, because if he just takes there, let me show you. If Fabi just takes here, for example, why is this thing freezing, bro? I want to show you guys the line. If he takes on h1, it's not as good, because now suddenly this is also Ampris. Yes, Fabi is slightly better, but it's not a clean trade. He's not going to be up a clean piece as he would have been if, you know. So this is why, and it's quite drawn then, because after that he'll drop his bishop. After king to c2, the bishop would, of course, drop to e4. But Fabi, with the intermezzo, first takes there, and then he takes that rook. So then after rook takes c5, bishop takes h1, rook takes c5, we get this queen to e4, king to c4, queen to e2, king to b4, queen to d2, checking MVL's king, and now we get rook to c2. But now, after bishop b6, Fabi just wants to trade off pieces. He's up the exchange. He's doing well. Maybe slight issues here with this pawn. Not really, because now after a4, Fabi trades off there, gets rid of the knight, because that knight could be a bit tricky. Maybe if it landed on c7. This is the intention, of course. But of course, if he goes c7 right now, chat, this is not really good. And I'll show you why. There's simply queen takes d4 with checky check. The knight's not on b5 to defend d4. So after that, we get this a4 takes, king takes, and now queen takes. Considered a bit inaccurate. Engine says you should take here. Of course, if queen takes, you just pick up the rook. The queen is not guarding c3. But Fabi, being cautious, takes on d4 because he's going to win that pawn anyways, is logic. But MVL says, nah, I'll go rook c7 to defend. But look at this. Rook f to d8. Fabi is like, yo, I want your queen, bro. What you gonna do? MVL says, nope, I'm guarding that. I'm going with my queen to b6. Fabi still gives the check, king to a6. And of course here, rook to d6. MVL's idea is to like go a5. If you take, he has this, and he has this majority pass pawns pushing. He does go a5, and Fabi, instead of all that, just does the simple queen to d3, king to b7, and look at the stylish finish, queen to d5. Queen to d5, the only move is there, of course, and now if you go there, Fabi will this time capture, you will capture, but then I'm going here, and Fabi calculated this again to the T, and I'll show you why this is so good, because after queen b3, let's say you go for b7. I'll show you guys the line now. B7, you're just gonna give a check here, here, of course here, and the dream is over. Like here, yeah, even if you give the check here, I just go up the board. I don't take, of course, but then you'd make a queen. But then after this, the idea, of course, is you will bring your king as close as you can. You give him some more checks. And you get your king close enough, like to d7, so that you can take, and you have your queen on the line too to capture that pawn if it takes back, if your king is not close enough to do that. But your king on d7 here, because this is the idea. Let me show you here. Wait, what am I doing here? Yeah, sorry. Let me show you here. So now, but anyway, it's all winning, bro. Let's say you want to go here. I want to show you this here. Then you could do this and you'll take back. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. But anyway, guys, that is the 7-0 streak that Fabiano had. The next game he played Magnus Carlsen and he drew it. Carlsen just managed to get a draw there. And the last two games after also had quick draws. But by then it was too late, since he already had a score of 7 out of 7. And won the tournament by like 3 points, because the second place was Magnus with 5.5. So that was Sinquefield Cup 2014. But yes, guys, I hope you enjoyed this analysis and the videos. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, what I can do to improve the content, if what type of content you want to see next, because at the moment I'm doing live streams and shorts, but I want to do long forms again. And yes, guys, let me know your thoughts. If you like this video, Give it a like, support the channel by subscribing and donating. It goes a long way. Alright guys, comment below what you want to see next, eh? And enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye.